Let's get straight into it, y'all. I've always known I was meant for more. And I don't say that to sound deep or spiritual or like I read some life-changing quote on Pinterest. I just knew. Like since I was a kid, it's always been this underlining feeling in my body, in my spirit, that I was here to live a life that looked nothing like what I saw around me. I didn't know how, and I didn't need to. I just knew it was already mine. It wasn't because I was struggling. It wasn't because I had to crawl out of some rock bottom. I had guidance. I had support. I had people who poured into me. But that belief, that core, I'm built for more energy, that came straight from within. Nobody planted that. It came with me. And now I'm living in the middle of that shift. I'm literally watching everything catch up to the version of me I've always seen. And it's wild, but also it's not surprising because deep down, I always knew this was going to happen. And let me be real for a second. I don't care what the world says about women having it harder. I don't care what the narratives that people of color are always behind. I don't care what the stats say about who makes it or who doesn't. Respectfully, I've never cared. I'm delusional as hell, and it's gotten me everything. I don't internalize limitations. I don't argue with data that doesn't apply to me. I don't water myself down just to fit into spaces I'm actually meant to take over. There is not a room I can't walk into and hold. There is not a dollar amount too big for me to earn. There is not a version of life that's off limits. I am the exception because I decided to be. And I want you to feel that way too. I'm not trying to beat the odds because that's played out. I am the odd. I'm the one that doesn't make sense on paper. I'm the one that statistically shouldn't quote unquote be here. But here I am, and I'm only going up. This is the part nobody wants to tell you. Your life doesn't change when things get easier. It changes when you get unavailable for anything less than what you know you're here to experience. This isn't about waiting for a sign. This is the sign. This is the moment where you lock in. And that's exactly what we're getting into today on Wired to be Rich. How to rewrite the entire algorithm that's been running in the background of your life so you can finally start living like the one that's actually meant for you.
She's not just a podcast host. She's a movement.
Manda Lee is teaching people how to break cycles and build real wealth, mentally, financially, and spiritually.
People all over the world are waking up to her message.
Wired to be Rich isn't just a podcast, it's a mindset shift.
She makes you believe again in yourself, in your power, and your ability to actually have the life you always known was meant for you.
Hi everyone, I'm Manda Lee, entrepreneur, speaker, and founder of Balance and Destiny, and this is Wired to be Rich.
There are moments, and we've all had them, where life just doesn't match the vision, where everything feels slow, stuck, or like it's happening in a different timeline than the one you saw in your head. And even though you know what's meant for you, it can still be frustrating to sit in spaces that don't reflect it yet. But even then, I've never really doubted the outcome, and maybe you haven't either. Maybe, like me, you've always had that feeling deep down that the end result was already set in stone, even if the route getting there was full of detours. That's something I've been thinking about a lot lately, how the finish line can be so clear, but the middle part, what we're walking through right now, is hazy. Like I can see the destination clearly. I know exactly where I'm going, but the path, that's still loading. It's being built in real time, and that's why it doesn't always make sense. But still, the outcome doesn't shift just because the journey looks messy. The outcome is the outcome, y'all. That part has always felt non-negotiable to me. So then it becomes less about figuring everything out and more about how solid can we stay when things around us feel shaky. How much of the vision are we willing to hold even when it looks delayed? Even when people are projecting, even when the stats and timelines and outside noise starts to creep in. Because I've been in those moments, the ones that felt like nothing's moving, even though everything inside says keep going. And I've always seen what happens when things start to catch up, when everything that once felt stuck starts to snap into place. That's why I walk how I walk, and it's not ego, it's clarity. And it's not about needing to prove anything either. It's just about staying aligned with what's already mine. If I'm in a room, I move like I'm supposed to be there because I am. If the opportunity shows up, I don't second guess it, I receive it. If things feel quiet or slow, I don't panic, I zoom out. But when the vision's that clear, there's nothing to argue with. The in between is just part of the build. And honestly, a lot of us are in that build phase right now. But if the finish line still feels solid, if you still feel it in your body, in your mind, and in your gut, that's all that matters. Everything else will catch up. All right. It's crazy how the world starts setting the tone for us before we even realize we're listening. Like without even asking, there's this subtle conditioning telling us what success looks like, who usually gets it, and why certain people have to work twice as hard just to be seen. And you start hearing it everywhere. The warnings, the odds, the quote unquote be realistic advice. It's constant. And it's not that those things aren't happening in the world, because they are. Inequality, bias, and access is all real on a collective scale. But the thing I've come to realize is you still get to choose what's true for you. You don't have to build your life around limitations just because they're loud. You don't have to adopt stories that made you feel like the exception that has to be explained. There's a difference between knowing how the world works and letting that shape your personal ceiling. Because at some point, we each decide what kind of reality we're going to subscribe to. Not in theory, not in a vision board kind of way, but in the quiet, day-to-day moments where we either shrink or step into the version of us that doesn't need to be allowed. That's the shift. Not pretending oppression doesn't exist, but refusing to build your identity around it. Not ignoring the stats, but also living like they're law. There's a freedom in deciding that your pet doesn't have to be an apology or an exception. It's just yours, unfolding how it's meant to. Not because you were handed the blueprint, but because you dared to write one. I've seen this happen too many times to count. In meetings, group chats, brainstorming sessions, you name it. Someone says something smart, clear, and well thought out. That someone is me in this scenario. And it gets ignored. And then like 5 minutes later, a guy says literally the same thing with a little more bass in his voice, and suddenly it's a great idea. Now everybody's listening. Now it's valid. And I'm not saying that's okay. I'm just saying that's what still happens in a lot of rooms. And if you're not really self-aware, you'll start thinking that means something about you. Like maybe you didn't say it right. Maybe you should have softened it. Maybe you should have waited. But no, that's not it, people. Sometimes people just aren't used to power showing up in a package they didn't expect. That doesn't mean you shrink. That doesn't mean you play small either. I had to learn to not let silence mess with my perception. Just because they don't react doesn't mean you weren't right. Just because they didn't clap doesn't mean it didn't land. And honestly, the more grounded I've gotten in myself, the less I even notice when it doesn't hit right away. Because I'm not performing. I'm not talking to be praised. I say what needs to be said because I know it's real. That clarity spills into everything, especially when it comes to money. Because when you're building anything real, you have to stop waiting for the world to hype you up. You won't make it if you need applause to feel aligned, people. That's why some people take off faster. Not because they had more help, but because they didn't waste energy second guessing themselves while everyone else was still trying to figure out if they liked their tone. They already knew. That's the vibe I felt reading this book called The Ultimate Day Trader by Jake Bernstein. It wasn't just trading advice. It was the reminder that success doesn't show up because someone finally said you're ready. It shows up because you were already acting like it was yours. That book didn't teach me something new. It just confirmed it. External results always follow internal alignment. And once you lock that in, you stop performing for attention. You stop waiting for the systems to let you in. You just start moving like someone who's already in the room. The money, the opportunities, the influence, it all folds in naturally. Not because it was handed to you, but because you stopped acting like you needed permission in the first place. One thing I had to really get through my head, especially when I started taking money seriously, is that timing and urgency are not the same thing. Like, yeah, you can be ready, fully aligned, clear, locked in, and doing all the right things, but that doesn't mean the results are going to show up right then and there. And I used to be so annoyed by that. Like, if I'm doing everything right, why isn't it landing? But just because it's not here yet doesn't mean it's not already moving. The money, the clients, the visibility, the momentum, it's literally being built right now. It's still loading. It's in the system. You just can't see it yet. And what I've realized is that you can't rush real. You can't shortcut something that's meant to last. And if you're really on this path to build wealth, for real, not just the aesthetic, you've got to get comfortable with things unfolding on their own timeline, not yours. That used to stress me out. Now it gives me peace because when you've tapped in and intentional, even the quiet seasons aren't wasted. You're still building. But this is where most people fold. They confuse a delay with a no. They start tweaking the whole vision just because it doesn't hit overnight. And that's when things get messy. You end up abandoning stuff that was actually aligned just because it didn't show up fast enough. Meanwhile, the people who really start to see their life change are the ones who know how to hold the vision without rushing the timeline. Like, yeah, it's not here yet, but it's coming. And I'm not going to throw away my standard just because I'm comfortable. That's the difference. Not believing it's possible. Everyone believes when it's easy, but staying locked in before the results show up, that's the real work. That's the part nobody claps for, but it's also the part that separates the ones who say they want it from the ones who actually build it. Because the middle space, when it's just you, your vision, your accounts, your doubts, that's not punishment, it's preparation. If you can hold it there, you're good. Everything else is literally just timing. That's it. This isn't about hype. It's not about motivation. It's just a decision. Like one day, you just stop being available for struggle, for proving yourself, for over-explaining your words to people who don't even have the range to receive it. You're done. And you don't need to make a big deal out of it either. The shift shows up in the little stuff first. You stop chasing energy that feels off. You stop giving full access to things that don't feel aligned. You catch yourself slipping into old patterns and self-correct quietly. No Instagram story announcement. Just nope, we are not doing that anymore. You're not overreacting out of urgency or proving energy. You're conserving your focus because not everything needs a response and not everything gets your bandwidth. That's when you know the decision landed. You're not wrestling with your old self. You're just done with them. And then the wildest thing happens. Your reality starts syncing up. People shift. Rooms feel different. Opportunities feel cleaner. Not because you became someone new, but because you stopped filtering who you already are. You stop stretching yourself to fit outdated timelines or borrowed definitions of success. And if you've never felt at home with the boxes people handed you, that's not confusion, that's confirmation. You were never supposed to follow their blueprint. You're here to build your own. And that inner tension, that I don't care how this is supposed to go, this isn't it feeling, that's your edge. That's your access point. And this is where people fumble the shift. They think wealth is about reaching some milestone or finally getting a seat at someone else's table. It's not. It's when you start moving like the table was already yours. Like your value isn't up for debate. Like the outcome is already locked in. You're just letting time catch up. Because that's what actually changes your life isn't the money, the title, or the applause. It's how you carry yourself before anything hits. It's the posture you hold when it looks like nothing is happening. But you know, deep down, you're not wrong. You're just early. That's when the game bends, low-key, intentionally, from the inside out. And that is a wrap today on this episode of Wired to be Rich, where we don't chase money. We move like it's already ours. So let me flip it back to you real quick. What story are you done carrying? What belief didn't make it out of this episode with you? Say it out loud. Text it to yourself. Drop it in your notes app. Post it and tag me. I want to know the exact moment it clicked for you. Because this isn't just background noise. This is real-time activation. This is where things shift. Not because it sounded good, but because something inside you actually moved. And if it sparked something in you, send it to someone who's been low-key ready to wake up. Or don't. Keep it quiet and let them wonder how you started glowing differently without ever saying a word. Either way, you felt it. You claimed it. Now move like it. I will see y'all next week on Wired to be Rich. Also, it is the first day of quarter 3 and we are officially halfway through 2025, y'all. Where is the year going? I want to invite y'all to go over to my website at www.balancedestiny.com and check out all the services that I'm offering in the ebook that I have for you to elevate your career. Again, that is www.balancedestiny.com. Tag me on my social medias in the show notes below. I can't wait to talk to y'all again. Until then, I will see y'all later. Bye.